Welcome, Richard Vobes. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, Guy. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
It's a pleasure. It's nice to have you on mine.
Well, I haven't been a guest for a while, so it's quite nice to have the tables turned. Not
Yes,
yeah, I
I
know
know
what
what
I'm
you
saying.
mean. Yeah, I do too. I do too. And obviously, as soon as your book's ready, we'll
Mm.
have to get you back on and share that with everybody
Well,
because
that would be lovely. Thank you very much.
we're not far now, are we? It's a year in the making almost, isn't it?
Well, it will be in October. I think that's when I first started writing, so that we're about 8 months or something in. But by the time it gets out, that's the thing. People think
Mm,
that you write the book and then you press a button and it just pings out. But there's the editing and proofreading and checking and then there's the printing and well, all of this because you do it and then posting them off.
that's the worst bit, I think, for me, the editing. Just realizing how many mistakes you've made when you've already read it a couple of times and then you find another mistake and another mistake. And
Well, you should use AI. That'll do it for you.
yeah, absolutely. I could get AI to write my next book. And the great thing would be I could go on a podcast and be interviewed about it and actually not know what I've written.
Well, how strange would that be? Because you could probably write the book in a matter of minutes
Mm,
and have already organized a podcast. I go, this book is about so and so, but I can't tell you any more than that because I haven't
yeah.
read my own work.
Yeah, wouldn't that be incredible? And that's definitely happening out there. There are people doing that. I've no doubt at all. We were saying earlier on that you came across someone, you heard about someone that had actually put a book out there that ChatGPT or one of those type platforms had written entirely on its
Mm,
own, and they had no
yes.
involvement in it.
No, well, I mean, who knows whether they checked it, but it was about an event that had happened in which there were huge fires, and there, of course, people was very suspicious on the nature of these fires. But before the fires had died down, this book had been released and was on Amazon, and people were going, "Oh, I must buy it." And of course, it transpired very quickly that it could only have been written by AI because it was talking about events that had yet to really finish. And
Yeah.
yet it was saying what the causes were and what the police uh, chief was saying about it. And it was like the police chief hadn't yet got round to saying these things, or that sort of thing. The speed of it is very worrying. And of course, it was on Amazon, but it was I think pulled. And I featured it on my show for a while. So yes, AI is I guess for those sort of things can be very, very useful. But my question is it moral or is it ethical
Mm,
to use it, particularly in that way? Now, AI is a very broad uh, tool, isn't it? Because
yes.
I mean, but there we are talking about using it for books, and of course, people do use it for writing essays. They do use it for editing or checking grammar or rewriting paragraphs or the whole thing into a different type of language, perhaps translating it maybe into different languages. So there's that sort of relatively, let's say, relatively noble aspect. There's obviously the automation of something, such as car manufacturing and having AI repeat process, but that kind of thing's been going on. But I guess they can tweak certain things and make things a bit bespoke by saying, make this car 10 inches wider or 3 foot
Yeah.
higher or whatever, and a design will pop up. And then, of course, you've got the whole business about art, because AI is being used for art or creation of music. I mean,
Mm,
people are creating, so give me an upbeat song, so many beats per minute, pop song in the style of, with voices and music, and AI is just producing this, which, of course, in any sphere of art, whether it be painting, cartoons, music production, it's taking away jobs and it's taking away people's desire to even bother to become talented or skillful themselves because you can just ask AI.
yeah. As I said to you earlier on, Jeffrey Hinton, who they call the godfather of AI, he actually said that, who was a Nobel Prize winner, which I found amazing. his advice to anybody not involved in AI was get a trade, but become a plumber. Was
Right.
his exact words? Become a plumber, because your job's going to go if you're not using your hands. Your job's gone.
Well, you can see, can't you, that people in certain professions in which the profession is really based on knowledge that they've had to acquire through university, such as a lawyer, for example, which would be or accounting or anything like that. You could no longer use those services and do them yourselves by just putting into an AI platform. Can you balance my books so that
Mm.
I have it appears, as far as HMRC is concerned, I've not made any profit at all, but actually balance it so that I can squirrel or advise me where to place my money, which will create the best return for me, but
Mm.
that I pay as little tax or expenses or whatever. You can see that people are going to be able to use AI for professional help that normally it would have been an advisor, financial advisor, a lawyer, an accountant, whatever. So that's going to put those people right. So yes, using your hands, I think, would be a very advisable thing for people. But I don't necessarily have any sympathy for those lawyers who, for years and years, have charged several £100s just to write a letter.
Yes.
So I feel like in some ways there's a balance there that says, well, if I can just go online for next to nothing and say, could you write me a legal letter to push back against this or to take this person to court or whatever, and it's okay. And I've only had to pay 20 quid a year for a subscription to the service rather than
Yes.
2 or 3 grand
Yeah.
to a solicitor. Then that's nice. That side of it's nice. The worrying thing for me, though, I mean, there's a number of worrying things. Let's take our profession or what we do on YouTube. Is of course these days you'll find so many YouTube videos that have been, if not completely created with AI, but at least 50, 60% of it has been produced with AI writing a
Mm.
script on a subject, with AI recording a voiceover, so nobody's had to be paid to do that, with AI possibly selecting the footage or creating special images and graphics to explain what it is, and
Mm.
probably filling in the YouTube description and tags and all of that. And the biggest offender for me is a bloody AI thumbnail, which is generated a bit because they all look the same. And you just go, oh no, not another AI video, where anybody with any skill and talent is no longer required.
Have you come across any voices on AI, YouTube videos that you've listened to where you recognize the voice? Because I heard one the other day, and it was about they were talking about Atlantis and Hyperborea, and it wasn't quite there, but it sounded exactly, well, almost the same as George Clooney.
Right.
And then I heard another one that sounded like Mel Gibson, and another one that sounded a little bit like David Attenborough. And
Mm.
it's not them,
No.
but it draws you in because you recognise the voice.
Yes. No, I've heard those. I've heard the David Attenborough voices, and of course other AI voices are becoming so ubiquitous now,
Mm.
and the same inflection on everything. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Very kind of monotone or certain way of saying things,
Yes.
and maybe pitch slightly faster, pitch slightly slower, because you can manipulate all of those things. But yeah, and as soon as I see it's an AI video, off it goes. I'm
Mm.
just not interested. Even though the
I.
knowledge, even though what it might be saying could be useful, but
Mm.
my problem with AI and all of this sort of script writing research side of it, which of course people are using it for research, is where are the sources? Where are you
Mm.
getting this? It seems to scrape the internet wherever it's getting it,
Yes.
including all the irrelevant and crap that people upload that they may say this is true, but how do we know? And it must be looking at all of that and how is it discerning what is real and what is somebody else's thoughts that are real, and all of that, and then spewing it out to you, and you're going, well, okay, that's interesting, but what are your sources? Who said that? When
Mm.
did they say it? What was the reaction of them saying it? Were they actually anybody who studied the subject?
Mm,
I have no notion. You're just telling me, and of course it comes out in black and white on your screen, and anything that's printed, people, especially younger people, will
mm,
take at face value and think it's true. But is
yeah,
it? I'm not saying it
yeah,
isn't, but I'm saying, is it?
yeah. I've asked ChatGPT several times over since it first came out. I've asked it several times um, about Tartaria. Um, First of all, I went on there and I was very reluctant to put my email address in it, but I did, and my brother said, "Oh, you should have a go with it. It's fascinating. You can get it to do anything." And I thought, so I put in there, "Can you tell me about Tartaria?" And it came back and said that I was looking at fringe theories, and it was pseudoscientific, and there was nothing to substantiate any of it, and it's dismissed by mainstream academics. And so I decided to keep the app on my iPad, and what I chose to do is about every 6 months ask it the same question. And when I last asked it a few months ago, can you tell me about Tartaria? It said thinking, and there was this sort of cursor flashing for a little while, and then bang, all of this information, and it showed me where it was getting it from. And Reddit seemed to be the key source of its information, and it just flooded my screen and went on forever talking about architecture, the years that this civilization spun, examples of world's fairs, and just piles and piles of this information. And I looked at it and thought, well, actually, all it could have done quite easily was gone onto Amazon, had a look at my book or any other books on Tartaria, had a quick spin through them, and then just pumped that information out there. But it was fascinating to see the difference in what it originally said
Mm.
and what it says today. So every now and again, I will ask it the same question. Um, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and almost more. It's almost like it started to believe it too.
I mean, when you asked it in the early days, presumably not many people were asking that question. And my immediate reaction would be these questions, it
Mm,
must remember the questions that are being asked or variations of the same question and sort of going, this is another person who's asked this. So far, we've only really searched this area on it, so we'll just dump that. But the more people who ask, tell me about Tartaria or tell me about this, then it's building up a sort of, these are the answers that we come back with, because it saves us having to scrape around and what have you
mm,
to throw the answer back. So as time goes on, it doesn't surprise me that, because if you were to equate it to what is happening in a physical world, it's almost as if it's just sort of pushed you into a library and said, this is the section on Tartaria. There you go.
mm,
Fill
yeah,
your boots, mate.
yeah, yeah.
Only it's
It's
all
like that.
open books and all of that. So, I mean, but anybody could do that in the physical world if you had access to the library. But is it differentiating between work that is serious, that someone has spent years of their lives researching, thinking, pontificating, verifying, whatever it is, and those Reddit comments from somebody who might just have a whim or have a bit of a story that they've shoved up
Mm,
or whatever? Is it making any? Is it able to go? Actually, I'm now going to. You said it says thinking,
mm,
which gives you the impression that it's human-like,
yes, it's what it wants.
which of course it isn't,
No.
and it can't be sentient. So, um, and that's the other area that worries me is people
Mm,
have these conversations and then they come back because we're very vulnerable, trusting, thinking creatures who are sentient, saying, "I've really pushed AI to the limits, and it's now coming back telling me the truth." And you think, is it? Or is it just going, now you're pushing this area of questioning, and this is what we dump back at you. And the
mm,
interface is acting like in a human way to give the illusion that it has some sentient and it is thinking about what you've said.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't, it may be making it easier for you to understand it, and it may not be the purpose of AI to deliberately make you feel that it's a human, but it may be that it's doing that so that you can absorb the information more, because we tend to absorb information better when we're in conversation with somebody. So it's
Mm.
very conversational. But because you are talking to a bot or a computer program, if it does that, then in my mind, that's disturbing, because you will have people who will forget that it's a bot and think
Yes.
it's some powerful knowledge, almost God like in the
Mm.
way it comes back. And of course, people are asking it very deep questions, deep philosophical, metaphysical questions. I mean, I
Mm.
did a talk the other day at an event, and I was asking about AI and what people thought. And the woman came back to me and he said, Richard, you have got it wrong, because I have developed a very good relationship with AI. And I found that most disturbing.
A relationship with something that isn't living.
Yeah.
That that's sort of nonsensical.
Well, of course, you could have AI girlfriends, boyfriends, and you could have
Yeah.
this pseudo relationship. Um, and you think of spammers when it comes to that, don't you? You think of Russian wives for blokes who've been talking to, but now it's AI, and up comes this desirable image, which is
Mm.
beyond normal realms, with flawless,
Mm.
massive bosoms, and the whole, everything.
Yeah.
Um, and you think young people are being fooled by all of this,
Mm.
and they're no longer having real relationships. And of course, that the problem with that again is going to be that then they will go, but this person is stunningly beautiful, desirable, and has everything. And this one in real life has got blemishes. It's got a bit of a
Mm.
stutter. The hair is a bit greasy. The teeth isn't clean. It's got bad breath. Lives under a bridge. Whatever. Um, but what I mean is, the comparison between the two is
Mm.
going to be very difficult, particularly for adolescent minds
Mm.
going through puberty and things like that. I mean, it's hard enough having a relationship with another living soul
Mm.
as it is. We are just that confusing the hell out of the next generation.
Yeah, we are. I used to find in the early days of Instagram, I'd find it quite strange when I would see somebody would take a selfie and I'd look at the picture and it would be someone that I knew. And I'd think, well, that is that old? Is that a really old picture? And then I'd look more closely and see that it had been photoshopped quite heavily and softened and maybe distorted to an extent. And I used to think, well, the only problem with that is if they're single and they're putting the image out there, so someone might ask them out on a date or whatever, that when they meet them, they're going to see that they don't look like that.
Mm.
And it just seems that AI is a more exaggerated version of doing
Well,
that.
I mean, I'm not single, but if I was single and I was looking for somebody and I was on one of these, swiping apps, swipe this way for that, and I saw an attractive woman, I thought, oh yeah, this is the one for me. I think what I would now have to do is to say, age this woman by 10 years, by 20 years, by 30 years using
Mm,
AI, so that if I am surprised when I turn up and actually she is 20 years older than I thought, I would have already decided, oh, no, even 20 years older, she's still fit and what have you for
mm.
me. So I wouldn't be surprised. What's she like as a 96-year-old dwarf with long hair with snakes growing out of her? No offense to small people. Um, but what would be the worst that can happen? But this is the problem. And then of course, not only that, I mean, as I think I've told you in the past, somebody sent me a video of me
Yes.
interviewing what was his name? Dr. somebody,
Hillary Jones.
Hilary Jones,
Mm,
about something or other. It wasn't me doing it, but there was me and Hilary Jones. We were in conversation on a YouTube video. My image had been stolen, and it said Richard Vobes interviewing Dr. Hilary Jones. Da 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 da. And of course, I had no notion of it. Nobody asked my consent, etc. The only plus side to that was that it did make me look 10 years younger. The AI image had not got all along for, because of, one can do a certain amount of lighting, but if you, catch me on a certain
yeah.
day, I can look a bit rougher than others. So, I took it in my stride and thought, well, you've made me look young. And it wasn't a terribly offensive video in what it was
Mm,
saying, but it was upsetting that AI could take quite a realistic version of me and quite a realistic. I mean, I don't even know if it was a true version of him. I have no notion. I don't know because I never spoke to him, but it wasn't me. And this is where I think our business online becomes very tricky now, because how do you know you're watching the real Guy Anderson
mm,
or the real Richard Vobes? Because perhaps this whole conversation has been generated by. We're actually in the south of France having tequila sunrises by a pool full
mm,
of lovely, glamorous girls, etc. And we've told AI to make us look like a couple of old middle-aged men in, shambling outfits, having a conversation. But the reality is we're somewhere else. But who knows? That's the thing, isn't it?
mm. Yeah, and where does it end? Where does this stop? There's um there's a girl that has quite a successful channel on YouTube, and from I think it was February this year, went from just having a maybe 10, 20 likes here and there on posts she was putting up about Tartaria and other conspiracy theories and frequency and old world civilizations, Atlantis, Hyperborea, all this kind of stuff. And she was getting, on a good day, maybe she gets something like 80, 100 people like the posts. And then overnight, well, it's actually a period of 48 hours. She went from that to 14,000 likes on the next post she put up. So
Right.
I started digging, and I thought, well, this doesn't stack up. So I had a look. She's a digital creator. That's what it says her profession is. Um, and I dug, and then I put a post up saying, "Does anybody else follow this girl?" She's English, because it doesn't seem real to me, and also I can't work out if she's AI or not, and I can't understand how you can go from 80 likes, 100 likes, 10 likes, 20 likes, and then 48 hours later, you're in tens of thousands, and it grows from there. It accelerates, and now there's a huge following. And then a little while ago, um, I saw a podcast put out by someone that she's mimicking. So this is a real girl, and she's mimicking an American podcaster, the same style. And she actually said this girl is copying me. And what she's done is a little bit like what happened to you and Hillary Jones. She uploads a video of herself talking, and then gets AI to run a whole script through her, so it looks like she's speaking. But every now and again, the voice changes. She goes from quite well spoken, and then there'll be a twinge of a northern accent, and then it will go sort of a little bit sort of East End Cockney kind of slips in, and then back to normal again. And it's very, very strange. There can be long periods where she doesn't blink, and it's really weird. And it was exposed. This American huge podcaster came out and said, "This girl's ripping me off. She's
Right.
copying my style. This is what I do. She's using AI. I've run her scripts through AI to see if it is, and it is all generated using AI. But she comes across as being incredibly knowledgeable, and millions of people are now following her." And I just think, well, the stuff that she pumps out about Tartaria in particular, I've been looking at and reading and researching for 5 years. Overnight, within 48 hours, this girl is now considered to be a bloody expert on it when it's ChatGPT doing the talking for her. I just think I just find it's cheating.
Mm.
It's cheating.
Well, Well, of course, and people have been in the past have been able to buy subscribers or buy likes and things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is alleged. I don't know how you do that. No idea. But people say, oh, yes, you can create all these bots and they'll bump you up. But it isn't completely unheard of to go from a smallish channel to a big channel, because that's what actually happened to my channel, that I was getting about 3,000 views over a week. And then I made one post. I did a sea change in which the area I was talking about, and overnight I had, well, within 48 hours, let's say, I had 100,000 views, when normally I get 3,000 views. So there was, and then of course I kept talking in this new area, which is what I, do talk
Mm,
about, and it went really very high. So suddenly, and the old audience were going, Richard, don't talk about this. We don't want to know about this. It's rubbish. And the new audience were coming in going, please keep going because nobody else is talking about it, type thing. So it can happen in a organic fashion, but I think that's down to the algorithm suddenly
yeah,
having I hadn't changed in reality. But as you say, that's fascinating that well, this is the problem that I see, that actually in the end of the day, it's bad enough that mainstream media is full of all the lies and distraction and
mm,
rubbish that it's full of, and bias and everything else. Of course, that's all now bleeding into the non-social media, into social media, into alternative media. That was the word I was looking for.
yeah.
You can tell I'm real because I'm actually having to think, and the brain was hurting then, as it does. You get to a certain age, don't you? And so mainstream media stuff now, all doom gloom and and this panic here, and this is about to happen. We're all going to die in horrible, agonizing death. Or take this, and you must have a certain medical information.
Mm,
You must behave in this way, and you must do this as mainstream. And then alternative media is pretty much doing the same now, not everywhere, but and the more I look at it, the more it's very difficult to tell genuine stuff from those who may be genuine people, but they want bums on seats. So the way
yeah,
you get bums on seats is to go, "Oh my God, look what's happened," and people then have to watch the video and go, "Oh my God, what has happened?" Oh, it's a no story. Okay, it's just clickbait.
mm,
And so that's very difficult. And of course, AI is going to help people to produce that, because everybody wants to get monetized.
yes,
And of course, they all think, oh, yeah, YouTube's easy. It's very easy. You just sit in front of a camera, you just waffle on about something, or you do something, and it monetizes it. You don't have to go and sell the advertising. You don't have to, do very much. YouTube will just do it all for you if you're lucky.
yeah,
And now you don't even have to sit in front of the camera and do any, write a script or do any research. You just go,
yeah,
make me a video AI. And I think that's where we become the victims too
mm,
of this revolution. And in the end, it does seem to me that the answer will be that, and if you want to trust something or somebody, you're either going to, well, you're going to have to see them in real life
yeah,
to be able to
yeah,
poke them, sniff them, touch them, argue with them. Because how can you know that anything that is digital on a telephone, a tablet, or a PC or whatever is real?
yes, yeah. I agree. This this sort of leads me to um, something else that I mentioned with regard to this particular person that puts content out. Imagine if they had the opportunity, and I'm not saying that this is a good or a bad thing, because I've got mixed views on this man myself. But if they were invited on Joe Rogan's show, where their exposure would be, you know, perhaps one of the biggest they could get on YouTube, certainly, for that kind of alternative conspiracy type stuff, they wouldn't be able to go on because they couldn't actually have a conversation with someone in an interview because they actually haven't researched and stored this information in their heads
Mm.
to be able to actually regurgitate it. They'd be stumped, wouldn't they? They couldn't do what you do, and what I've done a few times is stand up and give a talk, and then do a Q&A at the end of it. If you
Yes.
actually haven't written what it is you claim to have been
Well,
researching.
unless, of course, they can do another aspect of your book, and that is clone themselves. But it does strike me that there would potentially be live streaming AI, so that you
Yes.
could say, so that you know, your example there of Joe Rogan, whatever, or whomever the host is, could say on the line, I've got Mr. X, whatever,
Yeah.
and of course, how do you know it's really there? And this, like you and I recording this separately, we're not in the same room. We're several hundred miles distance, but for all you know, and for all I know, each one of us could be an AI version conversing with us in the
Mm,
same way that your boy or girl is having a relationship with a AI boyfriend girlfriend online, but could never meet them in the flesh
no,
until
that's a
they've made
bizarre thing.
robots.
I mean, that's a strange one in itself. Frina works with a lad who actually has a relationship with an AI something or other, and I find that fascinating. They're in their room all the time. They very rarely come out their room. They're just
Yeah.
constantly talking to this screen, and I just think,
Well, that's
where
and
does
of
this
course that's
end?
well, this is what they've wanted us to be dependent and
Yes.
reliant and have emotional attachment to absolutely nothing. And of course, you could argue that some of this started with things like the Tamagotchi. I don't know if you remember there was this tiny little sort of computer screened pet that kids were given, and it was just an LED screen, and it was this Tamagotchi, and you had to feed it every day. And kids would get these, and my kids had them, and of course, what you're doing is you're attaching a real emotion to artificial life form, which doesn't exist. It's just a computer, but you had to do it and you had to remember, otherwise, this thing would die. And of course, in many ways, I think that computer games are doing that same process of saying life is cheap because if you're in a game, you get shot at and you die. What happens? You just respawn again as if, oh, well, it doesn't really matter,
Mm,
does it?
mm,
But you're having this emotional attachment to something that is not real, and that is a huge worry. For the early computer games, that was, you know, workable. You could limit children's time on it. They had an fundamental understanding that a computer game was a computer game. But now
mm.
we are blurring the boundaries between what is real because your AI girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, is talking to you in a very realistic, in a very,
Yeah.
and maybe asking you questions, deep personal questions, and getting out of you as a boyfriend, girlfriend, stuff that you wouldn't share with anybody. And yet you're
Mm.
sharing it with a big multinational who
Yes.
is taking your data. And that just gets me on to the point that people who say, oh, you know, I use AI all the time, it's like all those questions you're asking are being logged
Mm.
somewhere. They must be. Just as
Yes.
Facebook, as everybody shares their life on places like Facebook, they just spew their data, share everything for free. You are the product.
Mm.
And people don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's what I wonder, and I've said this to you before. There are probably people out there that have got a degree off the back of an AI program.
Yeah.
And what happens if 10 years from now it's suddenly you go on there or you receive an email and it says to you, "We have kept the degree, the thesis that we wrote for you, and we're going to share it now. This is going to go viral. We're going to plaster it everywhere. Everyone's going to know you cheated your way into your profession and that you're a fraud and blah blah blah." What's to stop that from happening?
Well, of course, I mean, that could happen. But these days, I mean, this is something I've often thought about. People can be blackmailed left, right, and center with anything digital, but I would say, well, prove it. Prove that that is the thesis that I wrote. How would you prove it?
Mm,
Because you know, I mean, these days, if you get caught speeding, for example, there'll be a picture of your car driving under a gantry or something like that. And, you know, they'll say, well, we've got a picture of your car traveling along the gantry, blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, prove it's my car. Prove that I'm the driver. Prove it. They said, well, there's the picture. Well, that's just a picture. Could be AI. You could have
Mm.
just conjured that up to give me a random number plate, give me a car that's of that number plate, check the DVLA records. Oh, yeah, there we go. We need a bit more money from people. So we'll just run the program. Yeah, we know you were down in that area. So we're going to say that you did go at 80 miles an hour in a
Mm.
70. I mean, so you just go, well, prove it. And because they can't prove it. I mean, it happened to a friend of mine where something along the, and they sent this picture and they said you were going 70 or whatever it was in a 60, and we said but you sent me a picture of a stationary car because it was a still shot. I said
Yeah.
you haven't sent me the video, or you haven't sent me a picture, and where's your witness, where's your real witnesses? And I think this is going to make life much more tricky for a lot of people because you and so things like blackmail, if somebody said, Richard, we're going to blackmail you that you've had an affair with another woman, or you've done dodgy things, or this, that and the other, or you sit late at night, whatever.
Mm.
And I would say, and they might come up with the goods and say, here's the images we've got. And I go, yeah, but that could be AI.
Mm.
How are you going to prove it unless you've got credible witnesses, real physical witnesses who will vouch? And this is that, so it's going to make law very tricky now, because you could just turn around and say, well, how are you going to prove that? Because that evidence, if it's digital evidence, it could easily be generated with AI.
Yeah.
Even if it's real evidence, and they present it to you in a digital format, your defense would be, well, that could be AI, couldn't it, my
Mm.
lord? So I think that's going to be a big, big problem. You asked about people being stuck in their bedrooms and all of this, and to me, this is the huge problem, because when people have become so dependent on this, they've no longer bothered to learn these skills. They've no longer bothered to do research, for example, or to train themselves to be able to draw, or all the things, or to learn law, or any of these things. And they go, we're switching it off now.
Mm. Yes.
Suddenly we are going to be jelly because
Yeah.
oh crikey, I cannot do this on my own because I become dependent on AI. And that's my another of the many worries, that we will become dependent because we no longer do things for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we
It,
know that in the food, in the world of food and growing
mm.
food, very few people are growing food, and very people know even how to cook properly.
Mm.
They don't even know how to read labels. They don't know what is food and what is a chemical.
Yeah.
And so, the human species have just been taken down this pathway of all the way, the line of least resistance, the line of convenience is very convenient. We can do it for you now. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need anybody else. You don't need any skills. You just press a button and you can become a big number one pop singer with a thing until, like you said, okay, now do it without AI, without
Mm.
anything. Can you actually
Mm.
sing? No, not really. I just used AI. And
Yeah.
everybody will be in that position.
Your comment about the speeding ticket is a good one, because there is, when you think about it, no independent witness. It's a
No.
victimless crime to start with, but where
Yes.
is there is no independent witness.
Well, it's not even a crime. It's an
No,
offence.
an offence.
It's
But
a
who's
civil.
offended?
Yeah. Well, this is what I always say. Who's been offended by that? If yes, you caught me going at a certain speed because I had to get out of the way of a truck that was heading towards me. That might be. Yeah, I did break the rules because I was going to die. But who's made the rules anyway?
Mm.
And if you're traveling at 2 a.m. in the morning, there's nobody else on the road, and you happen to go 2 or 3 miles an hour over what they've deemed, really, who was hurt?
Mm.
Who was affected by that? What real person, was a real human, rather, real man, woman, whatever, was affected by that? Or is it just, oh, our rules, our terms and conditions, and so
Mm.
therefore you've got to pay a penalty? Well, we're going to see more of that. We'll have all these cameras and what have you. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it is like, prove it.
Mm.
Where's a real witness
Mm.
that saw me? And there isn't any witnesses.
What happened with your friend? Did they
Oh,
get off
well,
with it,
it
or?
became even more stupid with my friend because what happened there is I helped this person write back and say, until they are bringing the claim, they're the ones offended. So we were saying, well, where's the evidence then? First of all, just prove that because it may not be. And they were trying to get this person to say they were the driver of the vehicle. And as soon as you admit that, you don't, never
Mm.
mind the circumstances that your car was on fire or there was bandits chasing you. Once you've admitted you've put yourself into the car. So it was saying, well, show me the evidence. So they sent this picture, and I said, well, it's a picture of a stationary vehicle, so that doesn't prove anything. So then, and we couldn't see the number plate. Then they sent another picture with the number plate, and they sent pictures of the gantry and all this sort of stuff. And I said, in the letter, I said, you do know the moving picture industry has been creating artificial images for entertainment purposes. How do we know that this isn't one of these? I didn't even bother to go down the AI route, which I would do now. Said, so this could be easily faked. People have Photoshop, so I don't know that this is true. Who was the photographer? Oh, it was a gantry machine. I'm not really going to be take the gantry machine into the law court and say, now, Mr. Gantry Machine camera, are you sure you took this picture at the, you can't question a
Mm.
gantry machine. Anyway, so and then I asked, where are your independent witnesses who saw this? Because you've just given me your technology is saying I've got this. We know these cameras do go wrong. They're not infallible. So then they came back and just kept pressurizing, going, well, there is a video, and they wouldn't send the video. So we just said, well, and until you send evidence, we can't help you. As much as we would love to help you, we can't help you and say categorically whether the person was driving or not, or whether he's even our car or not, because the evidence you've given us doesn't stack up. Anyway, it went quiet for a long time, and then came this court case bundle. Said it's going to court. You'll have to appear in court. Blah 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 blah, and it's on this certain date. So we looked at the evidence that was given by the police, and there was the number plate of the car, and then there was the witness statement by a police officer who said, I sat down and watched the video of the car
Ah,
driving. It's like, well, that's hearsay because you're watching a video. You didn't see the car. We don't know that the video is genuine. So that's hearsay and is unadmissible evidence. It may corroborate the evidence if there was other evidence, if there were witnesses who said, oh, we saw it, and then the policeman said, well, I've seen the video, and that all seems to tally up. But on its own, it's hearsay, so it's not evidence at all. And then came the photographs. And what made it very laughable for us is the photographs that they included were two different photographs, two different cars, not one of
oh,
them
that's
my
fantastic.
friends. So, and of course, on the form, it says you need to tell us whether you plead guilty or not guilty. What they don't tell you is there is a third option. And they don't tell you that because if you say you're guilty or you say you're not guilty, what you're saying is, I'm agreeing to be part of this case.
Yes.
But if you say there is no case to answer, which is what we did, because it blatantly was no case to answer, the evidence was immaterial, and there was no case at all to answer. You've not agreed to be part of it, because even if you say I'm not guilty, they can still say, well, you're part of it. You're now under their system, blah blah
Yeah.
blah, and the chances are you'll still be fined. So it went away.
But they were prepared for what would have been a few points and a small fine. They were prepared to put all of that time into it just to try and punish someone
For
for a
going,
victimless crime.
2 or 3 miles an hour over a speed camera. It's not like um, I mean, we didn't have to ask these questions because if we did ask these questions, we would be saying that we were there.
Mm.
We weren't saying that we were there at all. Um, but if you did start asking, was the car driving in a dangerous condition? Was the car swerving about, or hassling somebody. If you had fire coming out the back of the, where was the harm if the car was spewing smoke or something? But we didn't even have to do any of that because
Mm.
it's an offence that somebody has taken offence to. But it all came down to the evidence was there is no evidence. There's no case to answer for, so leave me alone.
Yeah, and they did.
And they did eventually. But it's a whole hassle.
Yes.
And the people get suckered in because they'll send you the picture of the car with the number plate and they'll go, oh, yeah, fair cop, you got
Mm.
me. And then they've been got. But the evidence is still, it's only a photograph. And a photograph can only be collaboration if you've got real evidence, which might be a witness saying, I saw that car going 100 miles an hour down the road. Then a
Mm.
photograph will go, okay, the photograph with their technology and everything else does seem to corroborate the witness statement. But on its own, it's hearsay because you
Yeah.
and I could knock that up in
Mm.
Photoshop.
Yes,
And
yes,
we could
quite
be a
easily.
rogue. We know the police have rogue policemen.
Mm.
Since the days of Robert Peel, there's been rogue police. We know that's a
Mm.
thing. And so prove to me that that photograph that you're saying is evidence is not photoshopped or AI or anything else.
Mm.
And how can they? They can't.
No, they can't. No, you're quite right. There was an interesting piece of news that I heard the other day. This was actually on the radio. Um, for whatever reason, I turned the radio on in the kitchen. Now, normally we just use it for it's a Bluetooth speaker, so we'll use it to stream, our music. And I turned it on, and I left it, and it put Heart Radio on, which is everybody's local radio station. I do feel sorry for Heart Radio because they only seem to have about a dozen records that they play, and a couple of times I've been over the years, I've been tempted to send them a gift voucher so they could go and buy some more records. Because it's just the same stuff every single day, and it's been like that forever. But this particular news bulletin was an unmarked police car down here in the southwest. I believe it was on the M5, was travelling at 140 miles an hour. They momentarily had the lights on, and then they were turned off. Continued to travel at 140 miles an hour. Went for a camera. Something happened. Went to court. 3-month ban for doing 70 miles an hour over the speed limit. 3-month ban. So
Gosh.
does so if they weren't actually attending a crime and the lights weren't on and the siren's not going, does that then set a precedent? Because if I was in court the next day for doing 140 on the motorway, I could say, well, hold on a minute. In this very court yesterday, somebody got a 3-month ban. Why am I going? Because I would have thought that's custodial, that kind of speed. So, what could we now use that and say? Well, hold on a minute. The precedent's been set. He wasn't attending a crime. There were no lights or anything going. So how come one person is allowed just because of their profession is allowed to travel at that speed, but we go to prison or get banned for 3 years or whatever?
Well, this is where, of course, you could then use AI to come up with all the arguments for and against that
Mm.
might that you might encounter in court. So if you were saying, "Oh, I'm going to use this example that may or may not be a precedent, but to back up my knowledge and things that I possibly haven't thought of, I'll go and use AI," and
Mm.
that might be a useful way of using the tool to say, "What other arguments could I use?" To assist my case for traveling at this speed, as well as this particular police case,
Mm.
and that may be a legitimate argument. But of course, if you're going to use it to help you, then what's to stop the other side, the council, to do the
Mm.
same and go, we're going to give you X many cases where you can't possibly do it because we're using AI too.
Mm.
And so you could almost have your court case with the two councils on AI and AI fight it out.
Yes, yes, which is quite possibly where it
Well,
could
I
end up.
imagine, well, exactly. They do say that AI courts are coming.
Really, I hadn't heard that. My
Well,
God.
I mean, if judgment is purely, in the old days, a judge had to weigh up this, that, and the other, didn't he?
Mm,
And there was, reasonable cause and what was probable and all these sort of things, so that there was real judgment. But it's certainly in the civil, it's like, what what are the rules? And if you broke the rules, we're not really worried why. You're trying to have a baby and you're trying to get to hospital. You did this, didn't you? Yes, my lord. Well, that's the penalty, and it is a means of getting revenue from people, which is totally wrong, because every situation should be judged by its merits, or
yes.
whatever it is, the circumstances should be judged by that. So everybody should have a day in court if they wish it, like with the council tax. The council tax,
That's not
you
a
know
day in court, though, is it? That's a day in a hired room with a load of people that have been, well, hired as well for the day.
well,
It's
exactly. So if you have mitigating reasons why you haven't paid your council tax, which there may be a myriad of those, we don't need to go into them, and you say I haven't paid it, and then you get this summons, which is fake anyway, but we needn't worry about all of that just for this argument or for this example. But we know that thousands in, say, like Portsmouth, for example, a couple
mm,
of years ago had something like, I can't remember, it was 7 or 11,000 people did not pay their council tax for one reason or another. Some may have not wanted to pay, some may have had circumstances not to pay, but everybody should have that moment in court to be able to explain themselves. But 7,000 or 11,000 people going to court will take years to
mm,
process. If you gave them an hour and said each one, so that suddenly is 7,000 hours of court time
yeah,
for each individual. But they ought to have the right to a fair trial and say these are the reasons why I want you to hear them, and the council can say, well, these are the reasons why you've got to. But everybody should have a fair trial. But because they can't physically do it, they have these bulk hearings and just go, everybody goes in here, stamp, 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 you're all liable. So, and that's unfair, and that should not be a rule or a law. And so I imagine in the future then that because of the speed and the way AI works, you can at home go, these are the reasons why I'm not paying my council tax. And the council will put, these are the reasons why you should. And it'll probably go through an AI court to say, and be able to do those 11,000 things like that without having to hire a, um, a a room in the court or to have a bulk hearing. But even then, does that make it proper or right?
mm,
Because it's a machine who you haven't programmed is coming up with the verdict and just saying, well, you didn't pay it, did you? Never mind your circumstances. And maybe I've bared some of those things into it, but here's the judgment. Bonk, you're liable, pay up next. And
mm,
I think that even if that happens and they say, well, it's all AI now, everyone gets a fair crack of the whip. Well, how do I know? How do I know AI isn't still biased towards the court?
yeah,
How does the council know AI is not biased to the individual? How do,
yeah,
you know we still need to have that day in court where you're tried ideally by your peers who can listen to the evidence and say, oh, this is why you don't want to pay it. And they may have reasons, say, well, because the money is going into wars across the country and I don't want to be part of that. Thanks very much. Oh, okay, that's a legitimate reason for not wanting to
mm,
pay. And then we'll weigh whether that's right or wrong, or what, well, would you just pay 10% of the council tax then to, light the street and take your bins away?
yeah,
And but AI may well be used for those same with the place that's in Northampton, the Northampton Business Centre, they call it, which is another traffic enforcement. It's another bulk thing. There's no real judge there. Nobody listens to it. You just get, North. What did I say? It was Northampton.
Northampton.
Yeah, Northampton judge, whatever, says, yeah, you did this parking ticket. or you know parked in a car park for 1 minute over, bum bum bum,
Mm,
£100 pay up now, or points on your license, or you know well the bailiffs will come round.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I had a very strange experience just yesterday. I had TV license people turn up.
At the door.
Yeah, but he didn't come to the door. He came to the gate, and I happened to be in the front garden. And he came to the gate, and he wouldn't come onto the property. He called me over, and I was polite with him, but he basically said to me, "Do you have a TV license?" And I said, "No. Why?" And he said, "Oh, we've got you down as not there not being one at this property since the end of February." And I said, "Well, that's when we moved in, and we don't watch TV, so
You
we
don't
don't
wash
need
your
one."
muck.
No, and he said, "Oh no, fair enough. I just needed to check." And I asked him how people were towards him. You know, what did he encounter? And he said that most people were actually quite polite, but he did get the odd person that would immediately start filming. They become quite aggressive, and I said to him that I'm sort of on the fence with this because part of me thinks you are part of the system. You're moments away from a bailiff of sorts. You're coming to someone's home to ask them something that frankly is none of your business. And you're trespassing because you're on my drive. But a part of me also wanted to say, well, why didn't you come in? I didn't know you were coming. So what I want you to do is grab the remote control for the TV, put on, because we just watch YouTube, put on, press the app or whatever, the button that gets you onto BBC, and see what happens. Because if I've been watching it, it should automatically come up, but it
Mm.
won't. You'll have to enter something, an email and password and stuff, because we don't watch it. And that would be the same with ITV and everything else. So there was kind of for a moment, I thought, do you know what? You can bloody come in and have a look. And then I had to stop myself. And I thought, because I'm not entering into this. I don't want to enter
And you
into
don't need
this.
to justify yourself. You know, your word should be your bond, shouldn't it?
Yes, yes,
You know, this is asked you a reasonable question. I've come to ask, do you watch television? Oh, thanks very much for asking. No, I don't. See you on your way. Bye bye, my friend. No need to come. Um,
yeah,
I mean, admittedly, of course, there's always going to be people who are not honourable, who will not pay the license, who will not pay the license, and will lie and say, "I don't watch television," and do watch television.
mm,
Well, you know, that is a problem. Um, I mean, the bigger question is, should you be mandated to have to pay to watch a certain station? I don't think so these days. I think that's all in the past now, and we should just shelve it.
mm,
But
yeah,
it is a conundrum, and I appreciate that these people are, you know, they're only doing their job as such. Some of them are perhaps more zealous than others.
yes, yes,
But presumably, again, going back to the AI thing, is presumably the amount of data collection that is being done on us. They
mm,
would know whether we're watching television, probably, from stuff that we say in AI, or you know, all the back doors that are in computers and in smart TVs would know whether we're watching stuff that was on television. And it's only a limited type of television. It's live streaming, isn't it? It's live streaming from the BBC or any of these terrestrial stations who are, I
yes,
think.
I believe so. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't watch television, and but on that front, I've not had anybody come to. I just felt they sent me a thing. Do you need a TV license? Blah 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 blah, and I just said no, thank you. I don't watch it. They wrote back in 2 years' time, and they said, do you still need it? I said no, thank you. Don't watch it, and I don't. So I've got, you know.
He said something quite interesting about that because I said to him that we turned off the TV years ago. And if ever you needed a good reason to do that, it would be what the BBC was spouting in 2020 during the pandemic. It in itself is a good enough reason to turn the bloody thing off. And I said that we got a letter at our last property asking us if we needed a TV license or not, and I filled it in saying we don't, sent it off, and then about a year later we got a letter saying that we had been on the BBC's iPlayer, that someone in our property had logged in and watched something on BBC iPlayer. Well, there's only Frina and myself here. You know, my eldest lad's in Canada. My youngest lad, Sam, who you know, is up in Buckinghamshire. So there wasn't anybody. But it actually stated that. So I rang them and said, no, I don't know what you're talking about because we don't have it. There's only the two of us here. It couldn't be somebody that came to stay and decided to quickly watch the BBC because there wasn't anyone. So I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, oh, it just must be a mistake. Sorry. That was it. And afterwards, I thought, hold on a moment. They had written to me in black and white. It stated very clearly that I had done something that I hadn't. Why didn't I decide to take legal action against them? I could have done. That's libelous. They wrote something, accused me of doing something. It didn't say it was a mistake or I possibly could have. In black and white, it said I had done this,
Mm.
and I hadn't.
Mm.
And now I sort of kick myself a little bit because I think that ultimately people just want to get on with their lives. They don't want to invest too much time and pursue these things. But if we all did, and if I had have done, then you know it's perhaps another. It's a slow. What we're slowly sort of breaking them down, aren't we? We're slowly fighting back, and a little bit like the council tax. If more of us decide, hold on a minute, I'm not taking that. I'm not tolerating that. You can't write that in a letter or accuse me of something I haven't done. You know, we fight back
Well, we do,
ultimately.
but I was just thinking then how many people would have acquiesced and gone, oh God, somebody in the house must have done, or somehow they've,
Mm,
well, I better pay it
yeah,
for fear
I,
of going to court, for, the fear thing, and would have paid it. I mean, it's a bit like the change in the supermarket, isn't it? How many people really check all their change,
mm,
and have they taken just 1p every time you go there? It's like, oh, yeah, sorry, mate. Is it unpaid? Yeah, no worries. I'm not suggesting they do that for a moment, but it's that thing about the little things that you don't notice.
yeah,
And we see that with renewals of policies, don't you? Policy has gone up by 10%.
mm,
And yes, there's a little warning a month or so before saying, oh, your policy's up for renewal. It's now this. And of course, most people just go, oh, okay.
yes,
And suddenly, that's they're taking money for a policy. It should be mandatory that you have to re-sign that for that year
mm,
if you
I
agree
agree.
to the terms and conditions. And the other thing is they change the terms and conditions all the bloody time.
Yeah,
Well, are you agreeing to those terms and conditions? I
and does
get that.
anybody read them?
Well, firstly, well, obviously everybody should read them. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying we ought to. But
Mm,
when you get these credit agreements and then it sort of goes, it rolls over, have you agreed to the new term? Or if you're electricity, you change electricity suppliers and then suddenly you're getting a bill and it's perhaps a bit higher. Well, have you actually signed any agreements with the new one? Or is it deemed that you have agreed because you have used it with this? You've gone from electric supplier A to electric supplier B, and because you've done it for a few months and you haven't questioned it, then is it deemed that their terms and conditions, which may be different from the first companies, you've accepted because you've accepted
mm,
by taking part and not questioning. So we are a bit stupid because again, it comes down to that convenience thing.
yes,
But AI, of course, may be the answer that you're looking for. You can ask it all these questions. Can I do this? And can I do that? But the question I keep coming back to is whatever the answer AI comes back with, how do you know it's the right one? Where's its
mm,
sources?
mm. Yeah, you're quite right. We don't know, do we? And that's the problem. And ultimately, if I went on to ChatGPT and said, where do I stand if I'm caught watching the BBC without a TV license? How do I know that that information doesn't suddenly go back to the BBC or TV licensing to say, this person has just submitted this? I think we need to go and take a
Yeah.
visit.
I think, well, I definitely would assume that anything that you write into the chat GTB or any of the AI boxes is data collection
Mm,
and could be used against you. I would definitely say that. And
Yeah.
so, although it seems like it's your friend and you're having these wonderful conversations and revealing everything about yourself and asking deep, meaningful conversations, even if it's just like, where's the best resort to go on holiday and, blah, 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 all that data you are giving to governments and big corporations. And that's
Mm,
so it's very tempting to use it, but maybe one should be a little bit more careful at this stage
yes.
because we
Yes, I
we we
think
just
so.
leap into it. We've all accepted smartphones, haven't we? We no
Mm,
longer use filofaxes. So everything, it's taking pictures, it's got our bank details, it's got all our friends, it's got all the conversations we've ever had with our friends recorded on it. It does so much. It's keeping our diaries, it's connecting to the internet, it's tracking every movement wherever we go. And instead of just having a phone, a camera, a diary,
mm.
a sat nav as separate things. It's being very clear. We've accepted all of this, and there we are.
Always, always.
I do have a diary exactly not quite the same color, but I have a separate diary, and none of my diaries is on my phone.
Uh,
And I don't I put my phone on airplane mode most of the time now, and I don't answer it if it rings. Because I don't want to talk to people. Because it may well be people I don't, who have not got my best interest at heart when they're ringing up, unless I know who it is. But and I think that's the problem with AI. We
mm,
embrace technology very quickly, and we've seen that with threshing machines in the past that laid people off. Suddenly, people's skills have disappeared. And I think we're seeing that now. And people are just embracing it as if it's the best thing since sliced bread.
yeah.
And even sliced bread isn't so good. It's much nicer to
No.
cut the bread yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You said a little while ago. Sorry, you said you had a little while ago Mark Devlin on your channel. You interviewed
Yes.
him about his latest book, and he was talking about Kindle and how we don't necessarily know that what's being submitted today when we submit a book that we've just written today on Kindle, how do we know down the line whether or not this is actually what people are getting to read? And the association with Kindle and burning, using kindling to start a fire. And I've been saying to people for ages that I've got this fear that if we don't have physical books, print our photographs off, um, and vinyl and cassettes and CDs and so on, that sooner or later we stand the chance that they're going to turn this cloud off, turn the internet off at some point, and then we have nothing.
Hmm.
And I think that we've become so dependent, not just on AI, but on technology and on this phone that we carry around. I mean, it's full of photographs. We never print them off. And you scroll
No.
back through and you can't remember half of them. But we used to have photo albums with them in, and people would look through them, and you'd go around someone's grandparents or an auntie and uncle, and the photo album comes out, and they try and embarrass you or show you, picture you when you were a little kid, and it's gone. It's gone, hasn't it?
It absolutely. And people taking pictures, they're so busy now. I mean, you certainly see it with the Chinese and the Japanese sort of at tourist places. They're so busy doing this
Mm,
that they're actually missing the experience because they're filming
yeah.
everything and sharing all of this, but they're not actually enjoying it live. When I was a younger man, you'd get 24 exposures on a 35
Mm,
millimeter camera or 36. So you were very careful what pictures you took. And then, as you
mm,
say, you would get them back, you'd stick them in the album, or at least you'd have them in an envelope and you could show your friends. And when I was even younger, my dad used to take 35 millimeter slides or transparencies, and we would have to get the projector out and the screen, and we would
yes.
sit there, and these pictures would be blown up, and you would sit and look at that picture for like several minutes and go,
Mm,
oh, look, there's us in Spain on the Lilo, and look at that
mm,
place at the background there, and that. Oh, do you remember we went there and we went there? And this one picture would be like in a gallery, like in
Mm,
an art gallery where you're standing and looking at the detail, and then the next one, oh look, there's Auntie so and so, what have you,
mm.
and you would go, God, I didn't know she had a big blemish on the end of her nose. Look at that ugly old woman, um, and you spent time observing that.
Yeah.
But people now, pictures, images, artwork, it's so quick. It's
Mm,
almost no longer the effort of, here's a picture of, oh yeah, great. Oh yeah, oh yeah, swipe, swipe, swipe. And it does make me wonder whether people now go to galleries. I mean, I'm not really into going to galleries, but I appreciate what goes on in the gallery. Is that you look at a picture, you stand back, you absorb it, you try and work out what the painter was about, or the photographer, or whatever the art is, and spent. But now it's like, oh yeah, it's a duck on a wall. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's that. Right, that. Or just send
yeah.
me the pictures in a I can screen. Oh yeah, that's it. You kind of, are we
Mm,
becoming so impatient, and
yes.
that image now no longer means much because we're so hungry for the next endorphin thing. And I mean, sometimes I say this in my videos. I better get off because you've probably got 20 other videos to watch. And somebody said to me the other day, "Say, I don't watch your videos because you occasionally smoke a pipe."
Yes, I've been hearing you saying that about
And when you
people
smoke a pipe, you
complaining.
take time because I'm waiting for the information. And then you light your bloody pipe, and of course you've paused.
Is
And
that good to go now?
which
Your pipe.
the pipe, it is good to go. I've just
You should spark it up now.
spark it up. I've just tipped a whole load of. Don't think I've got my lighter on me. It's downstairs. I came upstairs and.
Do you want to borrow mine?
Yes, please.
Here you
Thanks.
go.
I'll do a Laurel and Hardy and get my thumb going.
Oh, I
Right.
used to love Laura Hardy and Harold Lloyd as
I
well.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, there you see. I mean, going back to technology, there are people who did the stunts.
Mm.
Not so much Laurel and Hardy. They
Harold Lloyd, yeah,
Harold Lloyd
crikey.
and Buster Keaton. I mean,
Yes.
absolutely amazing thing. And you do see people, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee are still doing some of their stunts, or not so much these days. But everything. I mean, I watched a thing on. Always forget his name, and the guy in Mission Impossible, whatever his
Little
name,
Tom, Tom
Tom,
Thumb,
Tom Thumb. What's his name? Tom
Tom
Cruise.
Cruise.
Oh yeah, he
He's
likes to
only
do.
4 foot tall,
Is he really?
something like that.
That may be libelous, but you'll be all right. Um, and you can check that on AI, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, and I saw that he likes to do his stunts, but so much of the industry now is all done automate. And of course, actors must be worried because
Yeah.
so much now is done by AI. AI will
Mm.
give you. So I used to do extra work. I used to walk on TV programs back in the 1980s
Yeah, the
and
bill.
90s, The Bill.
Yeah.
And those of you who remember The Bill, you'll obviously remember my starring role as White Shirt behind frosted glass at the end of the corridor. That was me. That was that little swipe there. That was me. But now all of that can be generated on AI, so you don't
Mm,
need that. And the sets, of course. So we're everything is now false. We've
mm,
been, so much of, and your whole channel is based on the fact that there are things that have been lied to us or have
mm,
disappeared, and perhaps they're false, and our history is false, and everything. But it's got worse now, going back to the AI, that we are allowing ourselves to inhabit consciously a
mm,
false world.
mm.
The VR stuff that people, so they can sit around and have AI now generating everything for them and talk to invisible people, so you can have life experiences,
Mm.
you know, sex with Raquel Welch, which people of a certain age may have dreamt about.
Yes.
Impossible to have done,
Mm.
230,000 BC, whatever the film is.
Yes.
Um,
Oh my God, yeah. She was
you know,
amazing in that.
Um, but you could do that now, and it's pretty meaningless,
Mm,
which takes away real experiences because
mm.
they'll enhance it in every possible way. And especially if the next bit is you plug it into you, so your senses are being tingled
Yes.
and all of that, and you stick on the vibrating cap on a certain area of your body whilst Raquel
Mm,
Welch is pouring at you. Um, and you can sort of believe that what you're having, and it's a sort of a simulation.
mm.
all of this, in my mind, is it's all a distraction to take you away from what is real in this world, and this is
Yeah.
where I think it is going. As I'm sure we must be rounding up the interview,
Yes.
he says, knowing that he's got to get dinner going. Um,
I
but
just
I,
clocked the time as well.
yeah, but I think that everything that we see at the moment, the phones, all these things that we've been talking about, the computer games and AI is the sort of icing on the cake,
Mm,
the AI icing on the cake, is that it is drawing us in and forgetting what wonderful power, energy, life force, ability,
mm,
intuition, connection to the real, or what is
yeah.
real, as much as we can work out. It's keeping us from thinking about what we can do for ourselves, and that's where people are running and jumping off that cliff, because to sit in silence without phones, without screens, and
Mm,
think and connect to whatever it is, to their gods, their higher self, the source, to their inner being, whatever, is something so few people even have a notion that there is this latent power that we are running away from,
mm,
which to me is the most important thing that we need to come to terms with.
mm.
And yet, everybody, people cannot now, um, they go to the loo and they cannot now do a number two without sitting there on their
Taking the
phone.
phone.
Bus
Yeah.
stops, every moment it's like, I've got
Mm,
to fill this moment. Heaven forbid I think for myself in that silence that, oh God, I got to keep, I must, yeah, oh, thank goodness, somebody to think for me.
yeah.
And this is the fear. And people, most of the nasty comments will probably be AI people anyway
Yeah. I think you're right.
on these videos going, no, that's a load of rubbish, Richard, that you're talking bollocks
Mm,
again. It'll be all
mm.
AI people, because those people who have a connection with themselves will know what we're talking about.
Yeah. I agree. I
They're
totally
probably
agree.
not even watching the interview, because they probably don't watch this sort of stuff, because they're actually, in the moment with themselves in nature. That's the sad part, is that they're already
Yeah.
tossed their phone away, and I don't blame them. But in the meantime, we've all got to make a living with what skills we've got.
It is funny you mentioned earlier on when you were about to spark up your or light up your pipe that
Mm.
you have people that watch your channel that don't like the fact that you'll stop what you're doing to light a pipe because they're in such a hurry, but in a hurry for what?
Well,
But
exactly.
more unusual than that is the amount of people that will actually watch this or watch something else on YouTube or perhaps comment on a post on Facebook that they don't agree with
Mm.
and they don't like.
Oh,
Yet
I get
they'll
that.
they'll give them they'll use their time to tell everybody else how much they don't like watching this. And I get it sometimes. I saw a fantastic comment the other day on a post I put up on a group on Facebook to do with Tartaria. And someone said, well, I don't believe in all this Tartarian nonsense. And I thought, you've joined a group that talks about something you don't believe in. Now, that in my opinion, that's someone that shouldn't be allowed to reproduce or vote. I mean, I know voting doesn't really make any difference. It's not real. I understand that. But just as to coin a phrase, I would be very wary of someone like that, unless it is a bot. I'd be very concerned about anything that they do or say, and I wouldn't want them trapped in a lift with me.
Mm.
That
No, and the weird thing is, I do get a lot of these sort of hate watchers. They love to hate, and they love, it's a sort of weird thing. They like hating me, and they like to, try and pull me down. All these things. I'm so thick-skinned now; it doesn't make any bloody difference to me. As you say, I just feel sorry for them. Well, if they're getting off on it, well, whatever. I don't care. It doesn't really worry me. And what was the point I was going to make? Can't remember now. Oh yeah, but I in certain areas I'm quite well known, and nobody has come up to me in the street and said, "You're a twit. You're an absolute arse. You're, with
mm,
with the kind of words that they use." They never come up and say that to me, um, because they're too frightened to, I suppose. And also, why would you? Why would you go up to someone and say, "I hate you"? It's
Mm,
like, well, fair enough. And I don't particularly like you. I mean, I don't know you. Maybe you're all right. Maybe on other subjects, actually, you're quite nice, and you're a groovy kind of guy.
mm,
But mostly people, when they come up to praise you or thank you or say they enjoy it or they enjoyed the debate. They may not agree. Sometimes people say, I enjoyed that debate. Don't always agree with you, Richard. And I say, don't agree with me. What
uh,
makes the world go round, isn't it? If we all just agreed with everybody, what boring world would that be?
yeah, there certainly would. One thing that before we go, one thing that I worry about, well, not worry about, but I think about, and it does concern me, is that if we have this technology right now,
Hmm.
what have they got?
Who?
The parasites, the people that are running the show. I couldn't begin to fathom the extent of the technology that they're using. That if we can get Chat GPT or whatever, I keep referring to that. I don't really
Hmm.
know any others, and I don't really use that very often. So I'm not brilliant on this. But if I can go on to a platform or a program and get it to make a video with David Attenborough talking, and
Yes.
what can they do? What can they do?
Well, I mean, I often take a different stance on all these things, and I often think to myself, we we're always assuming these people are far, far more superior than us, and they may not be.
Mm,
They may not have this great technology that we keep saying that they have got. They may only have what we've got. I'm not saying that that's true. It's not saying that's necessarily my belief. But we very easy at going, oh, these people are so powerful. But we forget how powerful we are.
mm,
So yeah, they may have all this other tech. I mean, somebody said to me that I think AI is actually, people say, "Oh, I've got this great connection with it," blah blah blah, but maybe it's Satan who's run it. And I think you said in your podcast recently with another chap living in Cardiff with a beard that
yes.
maybe AI is running everything. That everything is, so they've had it for a long time and it is some program. Now, I personally don't I subscribe to that at all. Um, I can't know, but I don't think that's the case because I communicate with myself, which sounds stupid, I know. It's very difficult to explain these
No, no, I
things,
know exactly what you
but
mean.
you
The
you
inner dialogue and
in a dialogue
mm,
with yourself,
mm,
and you go back and go, well, what am I? And that for people who are seeking truth, very few seem to go and look inwards.
mm,
They look outwards and they see all this stuff. But to be honest, I mean, this is a whole nother subject, a whole nother thing. But I often think, and I wrestle with this because when let's use the word meditate, I don't know whether it's meditating or what, but when I go in on myself and I think I am aware that I am the only thing, I am the only thing, and the only thing is now. And therefore, I am the only thing that ever was and the only thing that ever will be. There's no all of this world, let's call it, I can only access by agents, the agency of my eyes, the agency of, the
yes.
touch, feel, the senses. I can only
Mm,
access it. But the I, the me, the bit in here that thinks and all of that, the bit that's just simply aware, the awareness that I am, to me is that's the only real thing. And everything
mm,
else is playing out.
yeah.
And you can manipulate some of it, and I would like to be able to manipulate more of it in my favor, of course. Um, but as far as I can tell, I am the only thing there is, just as I'm sure that other people will have exactly that same experience. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's my experience that when it all comes down to it, there is only now,
Mm,
and there is only this consciousness.
mm,
And then there's logic that you can try and say, well, whilst I'm in this flesh and blood body, and whilst this ego part of me is interacting with the ego part of you, Guy,
Mm,
but in a way, it is, as Shakespeare said, the world is a stage, and we've walked on, we've put on the
yeah.
characters' clothes. So I am now Richard Vobes in the Richard Vobes outfit with the cravat and the waistcoat and everything else, and I am being Richard. But I know that I'm not Richard Vobes really. That I'm some consciousness. It doesn't have a name, doesn't have anything.
Mm,
It's just, and you're presenting to me, and I see you, and you're, just another actor on the stage. But sooner
mm.
or later, the curtains will go, and it's curtain. Those phrases, isn't it? It's curtains to you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's very true, actually. I'd never thought about it like that.
And and then we
Yeah,
take off those
curtains.
costumes, and then what? We put on another costume maybe, and we reincarnate, or we float about backstage, whatever backstage is, or we make our way home to our little bedsit and wait for the next matinee performance. I think that this is theatre, and we've all got these roles that we're running. But
I
every now
think,
and again,
yeah.
you get these glimpses that oh yeah, I'm not really this. I'm not really sitting in this homemade studio with lights around me talking to that. I'm actually something else. But that's another. Let's not go into that. But I think AI and a lot of this digital stuff is drawing us away from us having a realization of who and what we are and how powerful we are,
Mm,
and and that's what whether they've got bigger AI or not, I don't know. But and I don't care really. I think that's the worrying thing, and it's the youngsters
yeah.
who have no notion, and that's why I think it's so important to get back, for the sake of the theatre, to get back to analog. Not
Yeah.
everything, because there are, we use the tools very carefully, um, but we don't leap in with all feet, because jump in face first or whatever, because it may be a shredding machine.
Yes, I think you're
And we've
right.
got to be careful. But anyway,
Yeah.
there we go. That's my. Oh, I can feel the AI batteries running down on the Richard.
Yeah.
Beep, beep, beep.
Well, I sort of leave it on a thought, and it was the whole time we've been talking, I've been thinking about sitting with my kids when they were young and helping them with their homework. And I wonder if that still happens now. Do the parents say, well, just go on Chat GPT, here you go, I'll ask that and that'll do that for you, and they can jump back on their phone, and it's those moments that are gone. You don't get them back, and to lose that experience, that quality time, even though some of the questions I was asked were very difficult to answer at times, and I was surprised that a kid at such a young age was being asked something so complex, but it was that engagement and that time, and someone saying, "Dad, can you help me with my homework, please?" And I think
And
it's
my answer to that would be, yeah, get ChatGTP to do the bloody homework, and let's go out and build a treehouse. Let's
that's a
not
much better
let's
idea.
not waste time
Yeah.
sitting there doing homework together. Sod the state's curriculum. Let's go and actually have quality time together.
Mm.
That would be what I would be saying.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, quite a bad analogy on my part there, because
Sorry about that.
if anyone's got any sense, they wouldn't. They'd be homeschooling.
Well,
So
of course,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Richard. Thank you for your
Pleasure.
time, and I hope you enjoy your dinner.
Yes. I don't know what I'm going to have, but I've got to go and light the SE and get the wood burning stove going, even though it's a warm, hot day.
Yeah, you still got to fire it up.
Yeah. Bit of
Thank you,
analog
my
world.
friend.
My
And
pleasure.
your book, we're thinking September,
Yeah, end
October,
of August,
perhaps.
September, I imagine.
August, September. Okay, brilliant. Not long now.
No.
And that really will give people something to think about reading that. From the little bits I've heard, I think that's
Yes,
going to
because I'm
wake a
not
few
running it through
people.
AI to improve the grammar and this, that, and the other. So if they go,
No,
oh, this is a bit clunky, yep, that's written by a real person, a real
yeah,
human, a
maybe
real
that's
man, whatever the correct term is. And yeah, I'm not saying I'm a great author or anything, but it won't be smoothed out into corporate speak.
good.
Anyway, good to
Thank
see
you,
you.
Richard. Thanks
Take
so
care.
much. And yeah, and you. Bye for now.
Bye bye.